What can a psychic medium tell us about the most important thing we can do to help the body heal? Stay tuned to learn more about that and join us in a demonstration to show how we can apply it. This is Wellness by Design. I'm your host, Jane Hogan, the Wellness Engineer, and my guest today is psychic medium Karen Romine. Karen is a certified international psychic, medium, healer, and psychic investigator. She works with individuals, business owners, and law enforcement agencies. She gives evidence based readings and combines her knowledge of metaphysics and science to help people improve all aspects of their lives and health. Karen reveals in this episode the most important thing we must do to initiate physical healing. And she and I go over this great tool for how to make that happen, create the state in which that can happen. I hope you enjoy this episode. Please don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, and leave a comment and share this episode with anyone who needs to hear it. Enjoy. Hello, hello, Karen. I am so excited you're here today. This is Karen Romine, and I think it's the first time I've had a psychic medium on Wellness by Design. Well, I may have had psychic mediums, but we didn't talk about it if they were, because I think all of us really are a little bit psychic, right? But some people are more have that dialed in more than others, and you're one of those people. So Karen, tell me a little bit about how you got into this line of work, and then we can also talk a little bit about how you use it, because I know that you help the police and so on. So let's get started with, I mean, did you know you were a psychic medium when you were a little kid, or is it something that developed as you got older? And I want to let everyone know we're going to tie this back into health as well, because what Karen has learned relates directly to our health, and the lessons that Karen has learned we can apply. So, all right, Karen, tell us a little bit about how you got into this.
So when I was younger, this will sound crazy, heard voices and I knew things. And I thought everyone could do that. I thought it was just a given. And I started to learn as I got into that elementary school age and into junior high that this was not something that everyone did. And it wasn't really looked on from a positive aspect because people had a fear around it. They didn't understand it. So I shut it down and I went about my business and went to college and got into the business world. And I was very successful. And it was almost naturally. I really didn't even know. There were days I would get up and say, how did I even get here? I really did a lot of consultant work. I worked with a lot of startup companies and a lot of companies that were in distress of some sort, going through some big changes. And I found that I just knew what to do. So in 2017, I said, I'm going to just focus on this full time because I started to really see the benefits in individuals, in businesses across the board. And so, like you mentioned, I work with individuals doing readings. I work with the law enforcement community to help find missing people. And then I also work with entrepreneurial women that are trying to multitask their way through a small business and help them to actually use their intuition and use their psychic abilities.
Oh my gosh, such a varied, varied practice you have. But I love that. Do you agree with that statement, Karen, that most people, like if we learn, we can become more intuitive, and whether people want to call that psychic, I know some people like sort of are afraid of that a little bit, but do you think we all have that ability that we can harness and make stronger?
100%. If you are listening or watching this now, you are psychic. Every single person has that inner voice. We walk into a room and we're like, oh, I'm not so sure I want to go to that side of the room, or I just don't feel like going to the grocery store today. It's just an inner knowing. I think the most obvious for me was one day I was driving down the interstate to work, and all of a sudden I was just like, get out of the left lane. So I got out of the left lane. I listened. And when I came over a rise, there was a stalled car in the left lane, which I would have been implanted into had I not done that. So the reason why I moved out is because I've exercised that muscle.
Hmm.
I trust it, so I know to do it. Now, look, there's still plenty of times when I don't listen and I have to learn the hard way because I am human just like you. But the more we exercise it, the more we use it, the more we learn to trust that voice. And intuition is just psychically reading yourself.
Hmm. Hmm. That is so interesting. I know we want to tap in on some other topics there, but I wonder, do you have like a quick little thing that people, an exercise they could do to help harness that intuition and like, let's get it going a little bit more, tune into it?
I say it can be just as simple as this. When you go to get in your car to go run some mundane errand, the odds are there's more than one way you can get there.
Mm-hmm.
And just say, should I go to the right or the left? Which, however you want to phrase that. And feel in your body. If you say, oh, I'm going to go to the right because I know it's quicker, feel in your body. Does that feel good? Does that feel like the right decision? Maybe today you just need to take the scenic route and go the other way. And the more you put out in, we're all energetic beings. So the more you're putting out that energy and your brain is saying, oh, that's safe. That's
Right.
safe. She just asked which way we wanted to go, and we listened and we went the way we felt was best. Our brain starts to accept it. And our brain starts to realize it's normal because our brains are so geared towards keeping us safe.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a way to start the practice in a very simple way and to start to train our brains to know it's safe and it's a good idea to do it.
I love that because a lot of people do have like a bit of a fear around that, like this
Yeah.
unknown thing, or maybe they've culturally, learned that, oh, that's kind of weird,
Yes.
don't trust that. Um, Also, I had this experience myself. It's funny how you said like turn left or right. I remember years ago, and I was sort of like in a like bit of a crossroads in my life, and I had gone out of town for the day. And when I came back, I was like, should I go to the right was home, or should I go left? Kind of away from home. And I remember that the sign, was pointing one arrow one way, and the arrow that was pointing to the right towards home was like almost glowing. The arrow was almost glowing, and it seemed so much bigger than the one to the left. So I'm like, okay, I'll go to that. I'll go home. And I have passed that sign so many times, and those arrows are the same size.
Yes. And there was a reason why that happened. If we trust in the divine, in God, in whoever that is in your life, that they're guiding you to be in the best place for you. So there
Mm.
was definitely a reason that that sign was glowing. There's just no doubt about it.
Mm. I was kind of doing a lot of meditating that weekend, so I was really like, I think, tuned in. What is it? The tapped in, tuned in, turned on. So I was
Yes.
really like ready for it, I think. And I'm not really afraid of that. I use my intuition a lot now in different ways, right? Feeling it, like you said, do you feel a yes or are you feeling a no? So it's something that, and I teach it actually in my programs because it's such a infallible tool. And if we don't use it, we're missing out on this beautiful inner guidance that we have that we can apply to a lot of things. I mean, you don't need to question like every single thing that you're doing,
Right.
but start off small, like you said, and then use it. I started using it when I had my own health journey with foods. Kind of holding a food or supplement and say, is do I
Yeah.
do I need this, or is this, I would say, is this good for me now, is what I would say.
Yes, it's a perfect thing. And if you don't trust it, the other thing you can do is you think the question, you think, do I need this supplement? And you do it with a friend or someone that you know, and you say, just say yes or no. It doesn't matter what I say. I say, no. You're thinking your question, you just heard the word no, immediately sense how does your body feel. If your body's like, oh, that's not good, then you know the answer is yes.
Right, right. Do you think that this comes from the subconscious mind that has all the answers, or like our superconscious or soul, or where do you think it comes from, or does it not even matter?
I think, I would say it matters. I don't know if it matters, but I think it matters because on Earth, we want to know these things. It's how our brain thinks. So I think that it does matter. I believe that this information comes to us from our soul. I believe that it also comes from a greater being that wants the best for us. And I also believe that we're connected to people who have crossed over, which is another big part of like the communication part that I do. And they want us to have that freedom in life, to have that space in life to be the best that we can. So I also believe that it comes from spirit also, giving us a nudge.
Yeah.
Getting us to trust ourselves, getting us to believe in ourselves. That's a
Wow.
hard thing for us, right? That's one of the hardest things that we do is really believe in ourselves.
Oh, see that all the time. People not believing in themselves, or being hard on themselves and critical of themselves, and not feeling good enough. Like all of those feelings that I know now are contributors to poor health, right? Um, so what have you learned through your experience as a psychic medium about these emotions that we carry and how they relate to our health?
I have learned so much around one word that it makes me get up every morning and love to do this work. And it's
Ah,
all around the word forgiveness.
ah,
I noticed it right away. As soon as I started doing readings, I would connect someone with a loved one that it's crossed over, and they would say, there was no way I could have known. I call it ungoogleable information. The spirit would say, forgive yourself for this or that. I'm not carrying this on the other side. I don't hold this anger or resentment on the other side. And there's no need for you. I forgive you for whatever the circumstances are. And you need to forgive yourself. And I would get these beautiful emails coming afterwards saying, oh, I feel like I can breathe for the first time. So what happens is with forgiveness, really, people feel like if I say I forgive you, that means I accept what it is you've done, which really that's not it at all.
no.
It's about releasing resentment and anger in a space that we're holding it. And it only impacts us,
Yeah.
right? And when we hold anger in our body, it's scientifically proven that it weakens our immune system. And when we weaken our immune system, not only does that create dis-ease in our bodies, but it also prevents us from healing.
Yeah.
So allowing ourselves, forgiving others is one thing. We can usually somehow talk ourselves into that, but we're our own harshest critic.
Hmm.
We have negative self-talk running through our head all the time.
Mhm.
And forgiving ourselves for that is so significant in our path to wellness and healing. And I so believe in that
Mhm.
that it makes me get up every day and say, we need to talk about this. We need to get people to work on self-forgiveness.
Oh, Karen, it's so true. I see it in my Living Pain Free membership that forgiveness is one of the key topics we need to cover in and I've got it as one of my monthly themes, because it's so important to health. And I mean, for me, I knew that I had to do some forgiveness of other people. And like you said, I think that gets to be a little bit easier. But what I hear over and over from the members in my group when we start on this topic is that the hardest person I have trouble forgiving is myself. So exactly what you were saying. So what tools and strategies do you suggest for helping people forgive themselves?
When we get into a stressful situation, let's take people in your group with chronic illness, right? Something that's ongoing. So we know that there's that anger, that resentment that's settled in some way, shape, or form. When we go into that space, we only know one: fight or flight. It's big. We don't have a little fight or flight. Once you go into that path, you're full on. So what happens is that our whole body goes into this constant state of reaction to that.
Yeah.
So if we can calm ourselves, if we can release that panic feeling of being in that state, then we start to breathe in the in between. So I do this several times a day. This is a great way to do this. If you can't see us, I'm going to talk you through it at the same time. But if you have a vagus nerve, and this nerve runs from your brain to your gut, and it touches all of your major organs.
Hmm.
And so in turn, it impacts everything we do. It makes our stomach hurt, makes our heart race, makes everything happen, things we don't even recognize. So to release the vagus nerve gives us this gap, this breath. So if you just turn your chin comfortably over your right shoulder and just look at whatever you see and just take a deep breath and then just slowly come back to center and then do the same thing. Just look over your left shoulder to the other side. Right now, we're just sort of stretching the vagus nerve. Just notice what you're looking at. You don't need to stretch uncomfortably, and just take another deep breath. And right now, it's just like we gave a light massage to that vagus nerve. Now, just come back to the center again carefully. And now I want you to go back to your right shoulder. And as you do it this time, I want you to push your chin back, just not with your hand, just with your neck a little. Just put it back a little bit further. And then take your eyes and look as far back as your eyes will go. And just sit in this space for a moment until you feel your body involuntarily sigh, or you might feel like suddenly you're going to yawn. And I'm telling you that the more you do this, when I look over my shoulder in my car, I will yawn because my body thinks I'm doing this. After you feel that, you can just come back to center again. And that could take 2 minutes or 30 seconds. But we're going to go now and finish it by going over our left shoulder. And again, just turning the chin back a little bit further and then looking all the way back with your eyes. And again, you're just going to wait until you feel that involuntary sigh or a yawn come. And once you feel that, you can just come back to center again. Could be as long as it took on the other side. There's no right or wrong. Everything works that way. And what we just did was we just stretched and changed the way that the vagus nerve is working in our body. And it's got itself out of fight or flight, even if it's just for a moment. and it
Mm,
allows our body to feel safe. And when we feel safe, it's easier for us to have a positive conversation with ourselves. And it's easier for us to look at ourselves in a brighter light and in turn allow us to be able to forgive ourselves.
mm. So that was really powerful. So, well, the vagus nerve is that parasympathetic branch of the nervous system. So you're kind of like stretching, toning the vagus nerve, which then puts us into the relaxation response. And then that's a place to
Then,
then
yeah.
perhaps do some reflecting then and on whatever it is we can't forgive ourselves for.
Absolutely. And look, it's not going to happen the first time. You could have been in fight or flight in this space for years.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we were a child, we heard a story. Somebody said you weren't smart enough, or somebody said, and we made it our story. So it's not even about forgiving them for saying you aren't good enough. It's about us forgiving ourselves for saying, I'm not good enough.
Mm-hmm. And
That's where it
carrying
really
it
comes.
for years.
So, right. So we've been carrying it for years. So releasing our vagus nerve for the first time at whatever age you're at, decades later, is not going to be, oh, I forgive myself. Everything's great. It's just being open to, oh, just holding space for a moment. How you took a moment for yourself, you centered yourself, you did something for yourself. And now to just like you said, we can go through the science of the actual vagus nerve and what just happened, but it's saying, just take a moment and just say, wow, today's going to be a good day.
Mm.
Just change the way that you look at it, change the way that you see yourself. Go smile at yourself. That's a whole nother thing. I could go through the science of smiling and neurotransmitters in our brain and how it releases serotonin.
No,
it's
let's.
it's just a way of bringing some joy and happiness to break this panic, this fight or flight that we've been in. And gradually we learn to start forgiving ourselves for different things. You might journal, you might just go outside for a walk, you might meditate, you might do a lot of people, you say, oh, I don't have time to meditate. So I just always say too, you can just, when you're pushing your grocery cart through the grocery store, just think about good things.
Yeah, so easy. It doesn't have to be complicated, right? People do think, well, I can't meditate. I mean, I've had that my thought myself as well. Let's go a little bit into the science about smiling because I know I've done a little bit of research in this too, and I know that even if it's a fake smile, it
Oh,
works, which is kind of funny.
absolutely. Your muscles in your face, right here underneath your cheekbones, are tied directly to your brain. They are tied to trigger neurotransmitters in your brain, which actually release serotonin, dopamine, all of the feel good things. So when you see, it's like if we hear somebody laughing and laughing, we know in our head when they're laughing that they're smiling. So you'll just naturally smile
Mm,
because your brain hears it and your brain sends the triggers to your cheek. So it's already happy because you're laughing because somebody else is laughing in your mind. It's releasing things. Then you smile. And it's just like you said, you can fake it till you make it. When you smile, your brain says, oh, the muscle's activated. It must be good. There's a smile. And it starts releasing it. So it works both ways. Your brain can go to your smile can go to your brain. It can release the good feeling things, whether it's intentional or not. And it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Super simple.
right. And laughing too. You mentioned laughing. I remember at work when I was still back in my teaching at the college days, there were a few of us that were like, oh, we were stressed and we thought we need to feel better. So we would go to the staff room and laugh. We said, we're going to just start laughing. And we would laugh and we get each other laughing. I mean, we weren't telling jokes. We were like doing the fake laughing first, but then we were kind of laughing at each other, fake laughing. And, it did really feel good. And you did have a sense of release. But I
Yes.
think you're right that it's got to be a practice, right? Any of these tools that we use, it's got to be a daily thing. If we've spent years, which, I'm 58 years old now, a lot of this start of these fight or flight responses started before the age of 7 that I started storing stuff, right? So
Yes.
it's not going to release in a day. And then of course there might be triggers, right? In today's experiences that might bring some of that up again. So then you got to do the work again. But uh, the awareness is really important, I think, right? Being aware of, oh, I'm feeling a little bit stressed, and you can't, this is my experience anyway. I didn't even know what stress felt like in my body because it was so normal.
Yes.
So you have to get to the point where you know what it feels like to be relaxed, and then you can notice a difference.
Jean, that is so true. It becomes normal for us.
Hmm.
We just don't even recognize it. If you're having a difficult conversation with somebody and they're a little, just start smiling at them and watch what happens. Because what happens is two things. One is their brain sees your smile and they're going to start releasing happy hormones. And the other thing is that we go out of this fight or flight. We go out of this desire to fight this person who's staring at us because our brain says, oh, this is happy.
Hmm.
So that's another thing that happens, and it helps the whole conversation to go smoother. So even just in those moments, and once you start to learn, like I said, now if I'm passing a car or I need to change lanes and I look this way, my head says, oh, she's going to relax us, and I'll yawn. And then I always do it on the other side just so I'm balanced to keep you can do it in the grocery store. I picked the wrong lane. Do not ever get behind me in a lane at the grocery store. They always call for the manager. There's always something going on. So I can just look around, see what's going on, and come back to myself. And I've released that, I've got some place to be. I need to be doing this. Why do I always get the wrong line? Mind you, I'm not saying anything about the person in front of me who's not prepared.
Hmm.
All me. Why do I do this? What is wrong with me? What happens? So again, I just really want to stress the significance of self-forgiveness. It's
Hmm.
this negative chatter that we have.
Yeah. And that negative chatter, I mean, it takes awareness to know. We talk getting back to awareness again. It takes awareness to kind of go, oh, there I am. I'm in this negative chatter. And so, obviously we know that that is not going to be good for our health. Um, but we want to get out of it too, right? So the first step is to get relaxed. And then, do you have any other tools for how to release that negative chatter? Is it just a matter of being aware of it and then kind of like stop, tell yourself to stop, reset kind of thing? Or do you have any other tools, Karen?
I think awareness is the biggest. I think we do it without thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So once we're aware of it, if it's like teaching someone to meditate. They'll ask me, what should I wear? How should I sit? Do I have to hold my hands a certain way? When really you can walk and meditate. So it's just knowing. It's just very simple. Oh, yep, I do talk negative to myself. Just whenever I started to learn that I never blame the person in front of me in the line, I blame myself.
Mm-hmm.
So just knowing that I do that and then learning to just release it, even if it's just for a moment, if that's by smiling, releasing your vagus nerve, whatever it is that works for you, so that your brain says, aha, look how good that feels. Once you reach that point, then you can start to really do the work. And it's a constant. There are still things that happen. There probably be something today. I cancel, cancel, cancel is what I say. I don't want to attract energy of negative towards me, but it's okay if something happens that I'm going to blame myself for. I just need to learn how to release it. That's where the key is.
Mm.
Some people do great writing. I am not a journaler. I try. I really tried, and I know the value in it. But some people will write these beautiful long pages. I'll write four things. This happened, that happened, I'm mad. Right? So, but it gets it out of me. Some people need to just go outside and ground. Some people can just walk barefoot through their yard and just recenter. It's just about coming back to yourself. Some people, music makes really happy, brings joy, it brings back memories. There's a whole science behind music so that you can just listen to music. There's certain hertz of music,
Yep.
solfeggio, they call it, that you can play in the background that creates love or creates peace or creates a healing space. So there's so many things that we can find. And what I know for sure from the years of work that I've done is that when you go to the other side, you're going to look back and say, "Oh, I can't even believe that was an issue." And so here we are now putting ourselves in this space. We have to trust ourselves to release that so
Mm.
that we can enjoy this time that we have here on earth, so
Mm.
that we can enjoy other people, enjoy ourselves, feel good, feel better, even just better. People think it's always the mountain. You're going to climb the mountain. You got to go to the top of the mountain. What if you just went to the base of the mountain because you haven't been outside in forever?
Right.
So don't set the goals to be unattainable. That's another thing. People don't start with the biggest and the hardest. Just
Yeah.
get there. It will come.
Instead of starting with, I mean, because sometimes I think about this, that, perhaps I would look back on myself and say, didn't I know how magnificent I was? And maybe that's too much of a stretch. And maybe it's just starting with, I'm a good person. I'm a good person. Right. And then that is a better feeling than, why do I do this all the time? That kind of thing. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just acknowledging that you're acknowledging it is a step for a lot of people. We all have to start someplace.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So when you coming back to what, let's talk about psychic and a medium. What's the difference between a psychic and a medium? And then what are some of the we talked about forgiveness, but some of these stories that really made this stand out for you, or is there a story or one experience that really stood out for you?
So great questions. The first is, what's the difference between a psychic and a medium? So I believe we're all psychic, we're all intuitive, and psychic is all about the here and now questions. It's things like health or career, financial, anything that we wake up and we think, this is an issue, or this is something I need to figure out, or this is something I want to work through in our here and now life. That's when you go see a psychic. And you can actually work with a psychic to learn how to tap into your own inner feelings. My goal is to work myself out of a job constantly when it comes to psychic work, right? Because I want you to listen to your own voice. I want you to tap in and learn about that. The other side of that is mediumship. Mediumship is where we connect you with your loved ones, with your maybe not so loved ones that need to have a little forgiveness work around it, right? That have crossed over, that are in spirit. That's mediumship. I believe that everybody can do that. I think that it's a bigger exercise for the brain because our brain is okay with working through a financial problem and feeling uncomfortable and trusting to do something, but our brain does not think it's normal or safe to say, oh, I see a lady here and she's wearing whatever and she's saying whatever. And we know that person is not physically standing in the room. Our brains immediately say, ooh, red flag, red flag.
Yeah.
So it's mediumship is something that I think really it takes more to craft that. It's more learning that skill and really figuring out how to make our brain know it's safe. What have I seen happen with it? Oh, I've seen a lot of things happen with it. One thing that I've learned overall is, of course, aside from forgiveness, which is the biggest thing for me, is how healing tears can be.
Mm.
I used to always want to say to people as messages were coming in, are you okay? Do you want to take a break? Is everything all right? But what I realize is it's just a way we process. And they're so healing to be able to release that. I've been able to work with entrepreneurs right now. I'm working with a lady whose business partner passed very unexpectedly. They both ran two different angles of a very intense business. And when he passed, she had no idea what to do. So I've connected them in spirit, and she's learned he already had a whole plan in place. I think intuitively he knew
Mm.
because he had everything laid out, including grooming someone to fill his position, which she would have never known and they didn't know. So working with people to make life easier, to figure out how to make things flow. I think that a lot of times people find things. This is a funny story. One of the very first readings I did, a lady came, I brought in her husband. I gave her enough information. She said, yes, yes, yes. I'm okay. You've got him. You've got him. I just want to know what is the safe combination. It was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. So, of course, the guy never says. I never get the safe combination. And about probably 6 months later, different lady, same scenario. What is the safe combination? And he gave it to me, and she goes in the other room, and all of a sudden, I just hear her squealing with delight. She comes back. She says, I opened the safe. That was a safe combination, but there's nothing in there. But she'd been wondering this whole time since he passed what was in that safe. So sometimes spirit comes in and gives us what we need,
Right.
right?
Or
So
also doesn't give us something because we don't need it.
right, it's not significant. Some people come in and they're like, "Oh, I just want to talk to my dad. I just want to talk to my dad." I had a gentleman come in, he just wanted to talk to his grandfather. That was it. I had a person that he worked with that had unfortunately taken their own life. And they came in with this whole message, and he's like, no, I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is. So I said, Spirit, you got to give me something really specific. I said, were you on your back porch last night? He said, yeah. I said, you're home alone? Yeah. I said, you saw such and such, and you said in your head? He said, how do you know that? I said, because he's telling me this. That's how I know that. He's telling me this. He says, oh my gosh, I know who that is. That's my best friend from work. He just passed. I didn't know he could get over there that quick and come back with a message. So it's about reconnecting people to it's such a wonderful thing when you learn that it they're still with you.
Hmm. And also, I think for people to um, not be maybe so afraid of dying, right? Because it's not the end. Isn't it some one of the world wisdom traditions, maybe one of the Eastern ones, like they call death actually rebirth,
Yes.
right? It's a new it's a or going, things like going home, whatever that so I think if for me anyway, it doesn't it's not I'm not afraid of it. I'm not afraid of it because I just see
It's
this is just my experience for here now. And for me to do what I use it for whatever way I want to. Hopefully I think that I've got a soul kind of mission, right?
right.
And so that's what I'm here to do and other things as well. But yeah, I think it just seems to make more sense of things.
I tell people I envision it like a car wash with those big brushes and stuff. And that somehow when we pass the other side, we go through there and it removes all illness, all pain, all disease. It removes all of the things that we held against ourselves or we held against someone else. It helps us to process. Some people have a little bit more work to do when they go to the other side, right? There's a process that they need to go through of dealing with what it is that they've done. But as a whole, we're good people.
Mhm.
So I think that when people come, you should always feel safe if you ever go to get a reading, meaning you should always know that you're in control. If there's somebody you don't want to talk to or a subject you don't want to talk about, there should always be a clear system in place for that. But I always let people know that as they come in, they're going to come in full of love. Oftentimes someone will say, oh, I tell them that I love them, but as soon as you say that, they're going to say, oh yeah, that's not her. She would never say that because we know them here, but they've released it.
Mm.
So yes, absolutely. I think it changes the way that we look at death.
Hmm. And that's also calming for our nervous system, right? Which helps us live life more fully, live life in a healthier way if we're not constantly worried about, it's coming to an end and what's going to happen then. Yeah, and it's a lot of faith, but I think when people go to see someone like you and they're getting that evidence, the non-Googleable evidence, right? It helps with the beliefs because we have had there's been a whole lot around beliefs with all that a lot of us have grown up with. I mean, sure, in some families and in some cultures, it's probably totally normal, but in our culture, all those scary movies and things, it
Right.
has created a fear in people. So, so you're changing the conversation around that.
I am. I tell people when they ask me what I do, I always say, I normalize talking to dead people.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Well, thank you so much. I love the way that through your work, you're helping people live calmer lives. And when we live a more calm life, of course, we can begin to heal our bodies and heal our life in every aspect, right? So that's really beautiful work. Okay, Karen, I have a question, and that's I ask every guest, unless I've forgotten a couple of times, and that is this is about living intentionally and empowering people. So if someone was going to take, and I love the baby steps, so if someone could take one baby step today that's going to begin to initiate healing in their body, what would you say that baby step could be?
I would say the very first thing I would invite you to do is to go look in a mirror. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to do anything. Just see your beautiful self.
So simple.
Just see your beautiful, beautiful self.
Mm. I love that. I don't think out of 160 or so guests so far, I don't think anyone has said that. So that's really beautiful and simple, Karen. Thank you. And where can people find you if they wanted to get in touch with you? What would be the best way? And what's your website? What's your social media?
Best way is my website, KarenRomine.com. It's ROMINE.com. I am at Karen Romine Psychic Medium on all social media. And if you go to my website, you can get a guide that talks about how to have the best reading. It talks about fears and skepticism and everything. So you can get that for free just as another kind of spark of curiosity. It answers some questions that you might have.
That's a really great idea to be prepared for a reading, and so that you can get the most out of it,
Yes.
and really, yeah. use it as a tool to help you in your life today. Hmm. Karen, thank you so much for being a guest on Wellness by Design today and just for the great work that you're doing, and being so brave to talk about being a psychic medium and normalizing it, and so that people aren't afraid, right? And we can embrace it as part of who we are and use it as a tool for living our best life here now. So thank you so much for all of that.
Thank you. Thank you, Jane. Thank you for having me.
All right, Karen, we'll talk to you later.